In November of 2001, President Bush issues what's called Military Order Number 1. And that was, I remember having a reaction in this room with my office. We were stunned. Here, all of a sudden, it's 2 months after 9/11, and he's essentially taking over the country from a military standpoint. He's saying, I have the right to detain any non-citizen anywhere in the world. Without evidence, and they get no hearings, and I can put them in front of military commissions if I want.
Is this unprecedented in our history? I mean, we had the Alien and Seditions Act, but I mean, is this, you know, Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus,
right.
and McKinley also.
There's some history to treating non-citizens.
But it's pretty shocking that it's happening
right, today. Because we figured after the Japanese internment camps that the country would have learned a lesson. This is 60 years later. Plus, it's 60 years later where there's been a huge evolution in human rights law. There's Geneva Conventions, there's all kinds of things about arbitrary detention. You can't just put people in jail, you have to give them a hearing. There's all kinds of stuff.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Guantanamo Bay is a major focus of your work right now, isn't it?
Oh, Guantanamo Bay is, we started with these few cases. You'd asked me how many cases. I started with David Hicks, January 2002.
All right.
No one in the legal community, political community, joined us at all. We added to him Habib, Australian, and then we added the Tipton people from England and some others. And now, some of those people have been released, but it's interesting, well, some of the English have been released.
A Canadian as well.
Right, a Canadian, some others. The Pakistanis have put a lot of pressure to get their people out.
Right.
Pakistan had a mission there almost a year ago, 2 years ago, August, in which it said of the 58 Pakistanis, we think 53 had nothing to do with anything.
At all.
Nothing. And now, they're finally going to get some of those released. We probably represent, with other law firms now, who finally, big law firms have joined us to represent people, over 100 Muslim people in Guantanamo right now.
You're representing?
But our contact with them, of course,
is limited. Almost non-existent.
We represent their families. In fact, we sent a mission. One of my lawyers went to Qatar recently to organize Middle East clients. We went to Bahrain.
Do you have any Saudi? Do you represent any Saudi clients?
Here's the situation with the Saudis is there's 100 and some Saudis, and there's a law firm here that we're starting to work with that we're going to probably be filing on behalf of the Saudis, but that has not happened yet. They're all really. There's a law firm that I think is possibly a Saudi Arabian law firm that is.
Mike, can I ask you, what's driving you?
Well, I think two things are driving me. One is I think when I saw this unfold. And I saw the administration not even being Republican or Democrat, but being something else and challenging really the fundamental aspects of what I consider to be bottom line bedrock laws, the idea particularly of executive detention, that the executive or the king or the president can simply designate whoever he wants. Right. I went back to before the Magna Carta, which is our founding document from an English-American tradition, and I went back to the Inquisitions. And not only Inquisitions in terms of who they picked up, but in terms of the techniques then that were applied to people. So that's one thing that's driving me. But interesting, when I saw the play last night, I realized, and I knew this anyway, but the other thing that drives me was, well, there are two other factors. One is a parent's love for his or her child. And I've met a lot of the Muslim fathers here, and the mothers, and I see, I mean, they're just broken people from this. This is not even a regular going to trial in a prison. This is 2.5 years of some of them not knowing anything. Never hear, I mean,
it's like torture.
Azmat Beg has not heard from his son in almost a year.
It's emotional torture, basically.
And so to see, and I have children, and I identify that with that tremendously, and I identify with people also being in a total dead-end situation. I mean, this is not a regular prison we're talking about. This is the place where these people have no idea if they're ever getting out, where they get arbitrarily put in isolation. And I've always had a huge sympathy for the underdog. I mean, that's the other thing, and for government oppression. I've just been angered by government oppression. I mean, probably by my family, and
there's an interesting verse in the Quran that says, لولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لفسدت الأرض. Had it not been for some people defending other peoples, there would be nothing but corruption in the earth. And it's there's that balance constantly. You've got the wrongs, but then you've got those people that are, something inside of them is inspiring them to redress the wrongs. And it seems, I mean, I feel very fortunate to have people like you. That's why we wanted to come here and visit you, because in essence, I mean, you're really you know, you're in an unpopular position because I think some people, maybe a considerable number in this country, say, you know, this guy, why is he defending these terrorists, or why is he defending these, you know, these people? And
the amount of hate mail we got in the beginning, and I still got a couple letters the other day, but
right.
was extraordinary. I mean, why don't you go guard the people in Guantanamo and let them kill you, invite the Taliban to your house and let them eat your children? I mean, stuff that was so, I mean,
ignorant.
I mean, yeah, ignorant, exactly.
But I'm sure there was a lot of support as well.
In the beginning, there was almost none.
None.
And in this country, I mean, really almost none for the first, I mean, you understand, it wasn't just these cases, it was the whole country. I mean, if you said anything to say, well, why did 9/11 happen? If you even said, maybe we ought to look at who we are and what the world is like. It was a kill out there. I mean, you couldn't say that. Put your head above water.
Well, even poor Richard Gere, when he tried to give a little Buddhist message of forgiveness and love at the concert in New York, he was booed off the stage. Very popular actor.
So really tough stuff here.
If you look at the situation in the Middle East, and excuse me for this, there is a big conflict, you know, between the Muslims and the Jews, and you know, they're not getting along very well. Now, do you see the Muslims in here having an issue, you know, you being Jewish and defending them in jails, and why would you really go and defend Muslims in jails?
I think that's a good question, because you know, even some of my clients reportedly have made, you know, some anti-Jewish remarks, or what I interpret. To be honest, I interpret them as anti-Israel remarks. And my view is that part of the heart of our problem here is not settling the Israel-Palestine issue. To me, it's really remarkable. And in this country, you can make almost no progress on that issue. I mean, the idea that, for example, the other day that the Bush administration agreed to expansion of the settlements, to me, I can't even put that into my comprehension. It's not something I can understand. I mean, how could they do something like that? And so, in my view, unless you get over that issue, I think that it's going to be less safe in the world rather than more safe. And this country has not been on the right, this administration has not been on the right side of trying to really settle that. So I look at the bigger issue. I mean, I understand why Muslim people sometimes, you know, obviously I think, particularly in the Middle East, to be opposed to the practices and policies of Israel is obviously completely legitimate right now, and that slides over into the word, instead of anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, and of course Jews aren't all the same. I mean, you know, there's groups in this city right now who oppose, you know, the policies of the Israelis in the Middle East.
Probably the most dangerous thing also is more terrorist incidents, because every act of terrorism empowers them more.
That's correct. When you want to look at why this has gotten away with in the United States, I mean, let's take Iraq. Why did 65% of the people in the United States believe that Al-Qaeda was involved with Iraq? Why did the majority believe they had weapons of mass destruction? Because when people are in fear and people were terrified after 9/11, they'll say, oh, the leader says this, we'll follow the leader. What's going to happen here? So I agree with you. If there's more incidents, it could be even worse. And of course, there's been incidents outside of the United States.
Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
No, that was a gift.
Louis, you've been an example to a lot of Muslims.
Well, thank you very much. You guys that you still talk to us is great. So what can I tell you?
Thanks a lot. God bless you.